Okay, let's recite the entire 5th chapter of Brahma Samhita, which is the extant chapter. Let's recite it simultaneously together. When we get to the Chintamani prayers, I prefer to pause after the second line. So if you try to follow my meter. Ishvarak Parama Krishnaha Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govindaha Sarvakarana Karanam Sahasra Patra Kamalang Gokulakyang Mahatpadam Tat Karnikarang Tad Dhama Tad Anantang Shasambhavam Karnikarang Mahadyantrang Shatkonang Vajrakilakam Shadanga Shatpadisthanam Prakritya Purushena Cha Premananda Mahananda Rasena Vasthitam Hiyat Jyoti Rupena Manuna Kama Bijena Sangatam Tat Kinjalkang Tadangshanang Tat Patrani Shriyamapi Chaturasrang Tat Paritaha Shweta Dvipakyam Adbhutam Chaturasrang Chaturmurtesh Chaturdhama Chatuskritam Chaturbhik Purushartaischa Chaturbhir Hetubhir Vritam Shulayar Dashabhir Anadham Urdvadho Dikvidikshvapi Ashtabhir Nidhibhir Jushtam Ashtabhik Siddhibhisthatha Manurupaischa Dashabhir Dikpalai Paritovritam Shamayar Gauraischa Raktaischa Shuklaischa Parshadarshabhahi Shobhitam Shaktibhistabhir Adbhutabhik Samantataha Evang Jyotirmayo Devaha Ananga Paratparaha Atma Ramasya Tasyasti Prakritya Nasamagamaha Mayaya Ramamanasya Navyogastaya Saha Atmana Ramaya Reme Tyaktakalang Sisrikshaya Niyatih Sarama Devi Tatpriya Tatvashang Tada Tallingang Bhagavan Shambhur Jyoti Rupak Sanatanaha Yayonih Sapara Shaktihi Kamo Bijang Mahadharehe Linga Yonyatmika Jata Ima Maheshwari Prajaha Shaktiman Purushak Soyang Linga Rupi Maheshwaraha Tasmin Avirabhu Linge Mahavishnur Jagatpatihi Sahasra Shirsha Purushaha Sahasrakshak Sahasrapat Sahasrabahur Vishvatma Sahasrangshak Sahasrasuhu Narayanasa Bhagavan Apastasmat Sanatanat Avirasit Karanarno Nidhik Sankarshanatmakaha Yoga Nidrangatas Tasmin Sahasrangsha Swayang Mahan Tad Roma Bilajaleshu Bijang Sankarshanasya Cha Haiman Yandani Jatani Mahabhuta Vritani Tu Pratyandam Mevam Ekangshad Vishati Swayam Sahasra Murdha Vishvatma Mahavishnuh Sanatanaha Vamangadasrijat Vishnung Dakshinangat Prajapatim Jyotirlingamayang Shambhung Korchade Shadavasrijat Ahankaratmakang Vishvang Tasmadetad Vyajayata Atatais Trividhair Vaishayar Lilam Udvahata Kila Yoga Nidra Bhagavati Tasya Shri Riva Sangata Sishrikshayang Tato Nabhes Tasya Padmang Vaniryayo Bani, they have to, it's not, I need to read it. Next page. Rudhani karanani parasparam samavaya prayogachcha vibhinnani pritak pritak chichaktya sajjamanota bhagavanari purushaha Yojayan Mayaya Devo Yoga Nidram Kalpayat Yojayitvan Tuta Neva Pravivesha Swayang Guhang Pravishte Tasmings tu Jivatma Pratibudyate Sanityo nitya sambandhak prakritischa paraivasa evang sarvatma sambandhang nabhyang padmang harer abhut tatra brahma bhavad bhuyash chaturvedi chaturmukhaha sanjato bhagavat shaktya tatkalang kila choditaha sisrikshayang mating chakre purva sanskara sanskritaha Tadarsha kevalang dvantam nanyat kim api sarvataha Uvacha purutas tasmai tasya divya saraswati Kama krishnaya govinda he gopi jani ityapi Vallabhaya priyavahner mantrang te dasyati priyam Tapastvang tapa etena tava siddhir bhavishyati Atate pe sasuchirang prinan govindam avyayam Shveta dvipapating krishnam golokastang parat param Prakritya gunarupinya paryupasitam Sahasradala sampanne koti kinjalka bringhite Bhumishchintamani's tatra karnikare mahasane Samasinang chidanandang jyotirupang sanatanam Shabda Brahma Mayang Venum Vadayantam Mukhambuje Vilasini Ganavritang Swairang Shairabhishtutam Ata Venuninadasya Traimurti Maigatihi Spuranti Praviveshashu Mukhabjani Swayambhuvaha Gayatring Gayatas Tasmad Adhigatya Sarojajaha Sanskritas Gununa Dvijatamagamattataha Traya prabudhota vidhir vigyata tattvasagaraha Tushtava veda sarena stotrena ninakeshavam Chintamani prakara sadma sukalpa vriksha Lakshavriteshu surabhirabhipalayantam Lakshmi sahasra shatasang brahma sevyamanam Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Venum kwanantam aravinda dalaya taksham Barhavatang samasitam buddha sundarangam Kandarpa koti kamaniya vishesha shobhang Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Alola Chandra Kala Sadvanamalya Vangshi Ratnangadang Pranaya Keli Kalavilasam Shamang Tribhanga Lalitang Niyata Prakashang Govindamadi Purushang Tamahang Bhajami Angani yasya sakalendriya vrittimanti Pashyanti panti kalayanti chiram jaganti Ananda chinmaya sadujvala vigrahasya Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Advaitam achyutam anadim anantarupam Madhyang purana purushang navayovanang cha Vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atma bhaktao Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Pantastu koti kshatavat sampragamyo Vayoratapi manaso muni pungavanam Sopyasti yat praparasimnya vichintya tatve Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Ekopya saura chayatung jagadanda koting Yat shaktirasti jagadanda chaya yadantaha Andantarastha paramanu chayantarastam Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Yad bhava bhavitadhiyo manujastataiva Samprapya rupa mahimasanayana bhushaha Suktaryam eva nigama pratitaikstuvanti Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Ananda chinmaya rasa pratibhavitabhistabhirya eva nijarupataya kalabhihi Goloka eva nivasatya kilatma bhuto Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena Santak sadaiva hridayeshu vilokayanti Yang Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindamadi Purushang Tamahang Bhajami. Ramadi Murti Shukalani Amena Tishtan Nanavatara Makarod Bhuvaneshu Kintu. Krishna Swayang Samabhavat Paramak Pumanyo Govindamadi Purushang Tamahang Bhajami. Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagadanda Koti Kotishvashesha Vasudhadi Vibhuti Pinnam Tad Brahma Nishkalamanantam Ashesha Bhutam Govindamadi Purushang Tamahang Bhajami. Maya Hiyasya Jagadanda Shatani Sute Traigunya Tad Vishaya Veda Vitayamana Sattva-valambi parasatvang vishuddha sattvang govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami. Ananda chinmaya rasatmatayama naksu yak praninang pratipalan smaratamupetya. Lilayatena bhuvanani jayatya jasrang govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami. Goloka namni nijadhamni talecha tasya devi mahesha haridhama suteshu teshu te te prabhava nichaya vihitascha yena govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami. Shrishti sthiti pralaya sadhana shakti reka chayeva yasya bhuvanani bibharti durga. Icchanurupamapi yasya checheshtate sa govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami. Kshiram yata dadhivikara vishesha yogat sanjayate nahitatak pritagasti hetoho. Yaksham bhutamapi tata samupaiti karyat govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami. Diparchireva hidashantaram abhyupetya dipayate vivrite hetu samana dharma. Yastadrigeva hicha vishnutaya vibhati govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami. Yakaranarna bhajale bhajati sma yoga nidramananta jagadanda saroma kupaha. Adhara Shakti Mavalamya Parang Swamurting Govindamadam Purusham Tamahang Bhajami. Yasyaika Nishvasita Kala Matavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadandanathah Vishnur Mahansa Ihayasya Kala Vishesho Govindamadi Purusham Tamahang Bhajami. Pasvanyatashma sakaleshu nijeshu tejaha sviyankiyat prakatayat yapitadvadatra. Brahmaya esha jagadanda vidhana karta govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami. Yatpada pallava yugang vinidhaya kumbha dvandve pranama samaye saganadhi rajaha. Vignan vihantum alamasya jagatrayasya govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami. Agnirmahika kanamambu muruddishascha kalastatatma manasiti jagatrayani. Yasmad bhavanti vibhavanti vishanti yangcha govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami. Yaschakshuresha savita sakala grahanang rajasamasta suramurti rishesha tejaha. Yasyagyaya brahmati sangpritakala chakro govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami. Dharmo tapapa nichayak shrutayastapangsi brahmadi kita patagavadayascha jivaha. Yadatta matra vibhava prakata prabhava govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami. Yastvindra gopa matavendra maho swakarma bandhanu rupa palabhajana matanoti. Karmani nirdahati kintu cha bhakti bhajang govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami. Yang krodha kama sahaja pranayadi piti vatsalya moha guru gaurava sevya bhavahi sanchintya tasya sadrishing tanamapurete govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Govindamadi purushang tamahang bhajami Shriya kantaha kantaha parama purushaha kalpataravo Drubha bhumishintamani ganamayi toyamamritam Katha ganang natyang gamanam apivangshi priya sakhi Chidanandang jyoti paramapi tadasvadyam apicha Sayatra kshirabdhik sravati surabhibhyascha sumahan Nimeshardhakyo vavrajati nahi yatrapi samayaha Bhaje shvetadvipam tamaham iha golokamiti yam Vidantaste santakshiti virala chara katipaye Atho vacha mahavishnur bhagavantang prajapatim Brahman mahatva vijnane prajasarge chachenmatahi Panchashloki mimang vidyang dvatsatattang nibodhame Prabudhe jnana bhaktibhyam atmanyananda chinmayi Udetyanutama bhaktir bhagavat prema lakshana Pramana istat sarachara istat apyasaya nirantaram Bodhayan atmanatmanam bhaktim apyutamang labhet Yasya shreyas karang nasti yaya nivritamapnuyat Ya sadhayati mameva bhakting tameva sadhayet Dharmananyan parityajya mamekang bhaja vishvasan Yadrishi yadrishi sradha siddhir bhavati tadrishi Kurvan nirantarang karma lokoyam anuvartate Tenaiva karmana dhyayan mang parang bhaktimichati Aham hi vishvasya characharasya bijang pradhanang prakritik pumangscha Maya hitam teja idang bibharshi vidhe vidhehi tvamato jaganti Ishvarak paramaha krishnaha sachidananda vigraha Anadir adir govindaha sarvakarana karanam Iti Shri Brahma Samhita Sampurnam Hari Om Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So now we'll read the English, 5 verses at a time. And there's 2 microphones there. So each person reads 5 of the English verses of Brahma Samhita. What's that? You have to leave for cooking service? Oh, I'm sorry. But cooking service is nice service. Today is Ekadashi, right?
Mataji, you can read one by one. You can give one mic.
This cup is hard to drink. Yes, 5 each. I can read the first 5 and then we'll go. Krishna, who is known as Govinda, is the supreme Godhead. He has an eternal, blissful, spiritual body. He is the origin of all. He has no other origin, and he is the prime cause of all causes. The spiritual place of the transcendental pastimes of Krishna is portrayed in the 2nd verse. The super excellent station of Krishna, which is known as Gokula, has thousands of petals and a corolla like that of a lotus, sprouted from a part of his infinitary aspect, the whirl of the leaves being the actual abode of Krishna. The whirl of that transcendental lotus is the realm wherein dwells Krishna. It is a hexagonal figure, the abode of the indwelling, predominated and predominating aspect of the Absolute. Like a diamond, the central supporting figure of self-luminous Krishna stands as the transcendental source of all potencies. The holy name, consisting of 18 transcendental letters, is manifested in a hexagonal figure with 6-fold divisions. The whirl of that eternal realm, Gokula, is the hexagonal abode of Krishna. Its petals are the abodes of gopis, who are part and parcel of Krishna, to whom they are most lovingly devoted and are similar in essence. The petals shine beautifully like so many walls. The extended leaves of that lotus are the garden-like Dhamma, that is, spiritual abode of Sri Radhika, the most beloved of Krishna. The surrounding external plane of Gokula is described in this verse. There is a mysterious quadrangular place named Shvetadvipa, surrounding the outskirts of Gokula. Shvetadvipa is divided into 4 parts on all sides. The abode of Vasudev, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha are separately located in each of these 4 parts. These 4 divided abodes are enveloped by the 4-fold human requirements, such as piety, wealth, passion, and liberation, as also by the 4 Vedas, namely Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva, which deal with the mantra and which are the bases of achievements of the 4-fold mundane requirements. 10 tridents are fixed in the 10 directions, including the zenith and nadir. The 8 directions are decorated with the 8 jewels of Mahapadma, Padma, Shankha, Makara, Kachapa, Mukunda, Kunda, and Nila. There are 10 protectors, Dikpalas, of the 10 directions in the form of mantra, the associates of the hues of blue, yellow, red, and white, and the extraordinary potencies bearing the names of Vimala, etc., shine on all sides. 5 verses. It's not on.
The Lord of Gokula is the transcendental supreme Godhead, the own self of eternal ecstasies. He is the superior of all superiors and is busily engaged in the enjoyments of the transcendental realm and has no association with his mundane potency. Krishna never consorts with his illusory energy. Still, her connection is not entirely cut off from the absolute truth. When he intends to create the material world, the amorous pastime in which he engages by consorting with his own spiritual potency, Rama, by casting his glance at the diluting energy, is in the shape of sending his time energy in an auxiliary activity. The secondary process of association with Maya is described. Ramadevi, the spiritual potency, beloved consort of the Supreme Lord, is the regulatrix of all entities. The divine plenary portion of Krishna creates the mundane world. At creation, there appears a divine halo of the nature of his own subjective portion, Swamasa. This halo is divine Shambhu, the masculine symbol or manifested emblem of the Supreme Lord. This halo is the dim twilight reflection of the supreme internal effulgence. This masculine symbol is the subjective portion of divinity who functions as progenitor of the mundane world, subject to the supreme regulatrix. The conceiving potency in regard to mundane creation makes her appearance out of the supreme regulatrix. She is Maya, the limited, non-absolute potency, the symbol of mundane feminine productivity. The intercourse of these two brings forth the faculty of perverted cognition, the reflection of the seed of the procreative desire of the Supreme Lord. All offspring of the consort of the great Lord Maheshwara of this mundane world are of the nature of the embodiment of the mundane masculine and feminine generative organs. The person embodying the material causal principle, the great Lord of this mundane world, Mahasavra Shambhu, in the form of the male generating organ, is joined to his female consort, the limited energy, Maya, as the efficient causal principle. The Lord of the world, Mahavishnu, is manifest in him by his subjective portion in the form of his glance.
The Lord of mundane world, Mahavishnu, possesses thousands of heads, eyes, hands. He is the
Sorry, which one was it?
He is the source of thousands of avatars in his thousands of subjective portions. He is the creator of thousands of individual souls. The same Mahavishnu is spoken of by the name of Narayana in this mundane world. From that eternal person has sprung the vast expanse of water of the spiritual casual ocean. The subjective portion of Sankarshana, who abides in Paryavoma, the above Supreme Purusha with thousands of subjective portions, reposes in the state of divine sleep, Yoga Nidra, in the waters of spiritual casual ocean. The spiritual seeds of Sankarshana existing in the pores of skin of Mahavishnu are born as so many golden sperms. These sperms are covered with 5 great elements. The same Mahavishnu entered into each universe as his own separate subjective portions. The divine portions that entered into each universe are possessed of his majestic extension. They are the eternal universal soul Mahavishnu, possessing thousands of heads. The same Mahavishnu created Vishnu from his left limb, Brahma, the first progenitor of beings, from his right limb, and from the space between his 2 eyebrows, Shambhu, the divine masculine manifested halo.
The function of Shambhu in relation to jivas is that this universe, enshrining the mundane egotistic principle, has originated from Shambhu. Thereupon, the same great personal Godhead, assuming the threefold forms of Vishnu, Prajapati, and Shambhu, entering into the mundane universe, plays the pastimes of preservation, creation, and destruction of this world. This pastime is contained in the mundane world, hence, it being perverted, the Supreme Lord, identical with Mahavishnu, prefers to consort with the goddess, Yoga Nidra, the constituent of his own spiritual chit potency, full of the ecstatic trance of eternal bliss, appertaining to his own divine personality. When Vishnu, lying in the ocean of milk, wills to create this universe, a golden lotus springs from his navel pit. The golden lotus with its stem is the abode of Brahma, representing Brahmaloka or Satyaloka. Before their conglomeration, the primary elements in their nascent state remained originally separate entities. Non-application of the conglomerating process is the cause of their separate existence. Divine Mahavishnu, primal Godhead, through association with his own spiritual chit potency, moved Maya, and by the application of the conglomerating principle, created those different entities in their state of cooperation. And after that, he himself consorted with Yoga Nidra by way of his eternal dalliance with his spiritual chit potency. By conglomerating all those separate entities, he manifested the innumerable mundane universes and himself entered into the inmost recess of every extended conglomerate, Virad Vigraha. At that time, those jivas who had lain dormant during the cataclysm were awakened.
The same Jiva is eternal and is for eternity and without a beginning, joined to the Supreme Lord by the tie of an eternal kingship. He is transcendental spiritual potency. The divine lotus which springs from the navel pit of Vishnu is in every way related to the spiritual tie with all souls and is the origin of 4-faced Brahma versed in all 4 Vedas. On coming out of the lotus, Brahma, being guided by the divine potency, turned his mind to the act of creation under the impulse of previous impressions. But he could see nothing but darkness in every direction. Then the goddess of learning, Saraswati, the divine consort of Supreme Lord, said thus to Brahma, who saw nothing but gloom in all directions: O Brahma, this mantra, Visklim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopijana Vallabhaya Swaha, will assuredly fulfill your heart's desire. O Brahma, do thou practice spiritual association by means of this mantra, then all your desires will be fulfilled.
Brahma, being desirous of satisfying Govinda, practiced the cultural acts of Krishna in Goloka, Lord of Shvetadvipa, for a long time. His meditation ran thus: there exists a divine lotus of 1,000 petals, augmented by millions of filaments, in the transcendental land of Goloka. On its whole, there exists a great divine throne on which is seated Sri Krishna, the form of eternal effulgence of transcendental bliss. playing on his divine flute resonant with the divine sound. With his lotus mouth, he is worshipped by his amorous milkmaids with their respective subjective portions and extensions, and also by his external energy, who stays outside, embodying all mundane qualities. Then Gayatri, mother of the Vedas, being made manifest, that is imparted by the divine sound of the flute of Sri Krishna, entered into the lotus mouth of Brahma, born from himself through his 8-ear holes. The lotus-born Brahma, having received the Gayatri, sprung from the flute song of Sri Krishna, attained the status of twice-born, having been initiated by the Supreme Primal Preceptor, Godhead himself. Enlightened by the recollection of that Gayatri, embodying the 3 Vedas, Brahma became acquainted with the expanse of the ocean of truth. Then he worshipped Sri Krishna, the essence of all Vedas, with this hymn. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, the first progenitor, who is tending the cows, yielding all desires in abodes built with spiritual gems, surrounded by millions of purpose trees, always served with great reverence and affection by hundreds of thousands of Lakshmis or Gopis. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing on his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacock's feather, with the finger of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids.
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers, beautified with the moon locket, whose 2 hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments, who always revels in pastimes of love, whose graceful 3-fold bending form of Shyamasundara is eternally manifest. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental form is full of bliss, truth, substantiality, and is thus full of the most dazzling splendor. Each of the limbs of that transcendental figure possesses in himself the full-fledged functions of all the organs, and eternally sees, maintains, and manifests the infinite universes, both spiritual and mundane. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is inaccessible to the Vedas, but obtainable by pure unalloyed devotion of the soul, who is without a second, who is not subject to decay, is without a beginning, whose form is endless, who is the beginning and the eternal Purusha, yet he is a person possessing the beauty of blooming youth. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, only the tip of the toe of whose lotus feet is approached by the yogis, who aspire after the transcendental and betake themselves to pranayama by drilling the respiration, or by the jnanis, who try to find out the non-differentiated Brahman by the process of elimination of the mundane, extending over thousands of millions of years. He is an undifferentiated entity, as there is no distinction between potency and the possessor thereof. In his work of creation of millions of worlds, his potency remains inseparable. All the universes exist in him, and he is present in his fullness in every one of the atoms that are scattered throughout the universe at one and the same time. Such is the primeval Lord whom I adore. Do you want to take the next 5, Prabhu?
Nitai Gauranga, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
From where? 36.
Start at 36 and take 5 verses.
I adore the same Govinda, the primeval Lord, in whose praise men who are imbued with devotion sing the mantra, suktas told by the Vedas, by gaining their appropriate beauty, greatness, thrones, convenience, and ornaments. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities in the company of her confidants, Sakhis, embodiments of the extension of her bodily form, premeditated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual rasa. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is Surdura, Krishna himself, with inconceivable, innumerable attributes, whom the pure devotees see in their heart of hearts, with the eye of devotion, tinged with the salve of love. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who manifested himself personally as Krishna and the different avatars in the world in the forms of Rama, Nrsimha, Vamana, etc., as his subjective portions. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose effulgence is the source of the non-differentiated Brahman mentioned in the Upanishads, being differentiated from the infinity of the glories of the mundane universe, appears as the indivisible, infinite, limitless, and truth.
Prabhu, will you take the next 5?
I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is the absolute substantive principle, being the ultimate entity in the form of the support of all existence, whose external potency embodies the threefold mundane qualities, tattva, rajas, and tamas, and diffuses the Vedic knowledge regarding the mundane world. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose glory ever triumphantly dominates the mundane world by the activity of his own pastimes, being reflected in the mind of recollecting souls as the transcendental entity of ever blissful cognitive rasa. The lowest of all is located Devi Dham. Next above is Mahesh Dham. Above Mahesh Dham is placed Hari Dham. And above them all is located Krishna's own realm, named Goloka. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who has allotted their respective authorities to the rulers of those graded realms. The external potency, Maya, who is of the nature of the shadow of the Chit potency, is worshipped by all people as Durga, the creating, preserving, and destroying agency of this mundane world. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, in accordance with whose will Durga conducts herself. Just as milk is transformed into curd by the action of acids, but yet the effect curd is neither same as nor different from its cause, milk. So I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whom the state of Shambhu is a transformation for the performance of the work of destruction.
Navina Prabhu. Five verses.
The light of one candle being communicated to other candles, although it burns separately in them, is the same in its quality. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who exhibits himself equally in the same mobile manner in his various manifestations. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who, assuming his own great subjective form, who bears the name of Shesha, replete with the all-accommodating potency and reposing in the causal ocean with the infinity of the world in the pores of his hair, enjoys creative sleep, yoga nidra. Brahma and other lords of the mundane worlds, appearing from the pores of hair of Mahavishnu, remain alive as long as the duration of one exhalation of the latter, Mahavishnu. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whose subjective personality Mahavishnu is the portion of portion. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, from whom the separated subjective portion Brahma receives his power for the regulation of the mundane world, just as the sun manifests some portion of his own light in all the effulgent gems that bear the names of Suryakanta, etc. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, whose lotus feet are always held by Ganesha upon the pair of tumuli protruding from his elephant head, in order to obtain power for his function of destroying all the obstacles on the path of progress of the three worlds.
The three worlds are composed of the 9 elements, namely fire, earth, ether, water, air, direction, time, soul, and mind. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, from whom they originate, in whom they exist, and into whom they enter at the time of the universal cataclysm. The sun, who is the king of all the planets, full of infinite effulgence, the image of the good soul, is as the eye of this world. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, in pursuance of whose order the sun performs his journey mounting the wheel of time. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, by whose conferred power are maintained the manifested potencies that are found to exist of all virtues, all vices, the Vedas, the penances, and all jivas from Brahma to the meanest insect. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, who burns up to their roots all fruitive activities of those who are imbued with devotion, and impartially ordains for each the due enjoyment of the fruits of one's activities of all those who walk in the path of work, in accordance with the chain of their previously performed works, no less in the case of the tiny insect that bears the name of Indragopa than that of Indra, king of the Devas. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, the meditators of whom, by meditating upon him under the sway of wrath, amorous passion, natural friendly love, fear, parental affection, delusion, reverence, and willing service, attain to bodily forms befitting the nature of their contemplation.
I worship the transcendental seat known as Sweta Dvipa, where as loving consorts the Lakshmis in their unalloyed spiritual essence practice the amorous service of the Supreme Lord Krishna as their only lover, where every tree is a transcendental purpose tree, where the soil is the purpose of gem, all water is nectar, every word is a song, every gate is a dance. The flute is the favorite attendant, effulgence is full of transcendental bliss, and the supreme spiritual entities are all enjoyable and tasty, where numberless milk cows always emit transcendental oceans of milk, where there is eternal existence of transcendental time, who is ever present and without past or future, and hence is not subject to the quality of passing away even for the space of half a moment. That realm is known as Goloka, only to a very few self-realized souls in this world. On hearing these hymns containing the essence of the truth, the Supreme Lord Krishna said to Brahma, Brahma, if you experience the inclination to create offspring by being endowed with the real knowledge of the glory of Godhead, listen, my beloved, from me to this science set forth in the following 5 slokas. When the pure spiritual experience is excited by means of cognition and service, bhakti, super excellent unalloyed devotion characterized by love for Godhead is awakened towards Krishna, the beloved of all souls. The highest devotion is attained by slow degrees by the method of constant endeavor for self-realization with the help of scriptural evidence, theistic conduct, and perseverance in practice. These preliminary practices of devotion, sadhana bhakti, are conducive to the realization of loving devotion than whom there is no superior well-being, who goes hand in hand with the attainment of the exclusive state of supreme bliss, and who can lead to myself.
Abandoning all meritorious performance, serve me with faith. The realization will correspond to the nature of one's faith. The people of the world act ceaselessly in pursuance of some ideal. By meditating on me by means of those deeds, one will obtain devotion characterized by love in the shape of supreme service. Listen, O Vidhi, I am the seed, that is the fundamental principle of this world of animate and inanimate objects. I am Pradhana, the substance of matter. I am Prakriti, material cause, and I am Purusha, efficient cause. Their fiery energy that belongs specially to the Brahman that inheres is in you has also been conferred by me. It is by bearing this fiery energy that you regulate this phenomenal world of animate and inanimate objects.
Hare Krishna. So usually we read one purport from the Brahma Samhita. And I was wondering if any of you, while we were doing the reading, had any verse that you had a question about or that stood out in your mind that we should talk about. Yes, Prabhu.
How like Mahavishnu's pores like always emanates living entities.
His pores.
Yeah.
The pores of Mahavishnu. Oh, that's a short purport, I think, but okay. No, maybe not. I'm thinking of the one that just says that the universes exist for the time of one exhalation. That's a very short purport. It just says this shows the majesty or something. But all right, let's look at that one. Then, by the way, the word causal that comes up in this thing, I noticed some of you are reading it as casual, and it's actually causal. And what it means is like causative, being the cause of something, causation. It's like a philosophical word. Let's see now. Mahavishnu. Sorry, bear with me please. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Please chant. Rama, Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Okay, well, text 48 is the one I was thinking of, and it just has a very tiny purport, but maybe there's another text earlier on, and I'll look for that. Let's do text 48. The Sanskrit is Yasyaika Nishvasita Kala Matavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagad Andanathaha Vishnur Mahan Si Iha Yasya Kalavishesho Govindam Adipurushang Tamahang Bhajami. Translation: Brahma and other lords of the mundane worlds, appearing from the pores of hair of Mahavishnu, remain alive as long as the duration of one exhalation of the latter, Mahavishnu. I adore the primeval Lord Govinda, of whose subjective personality Mahavishnu is the portion of portion. And the purport is, the supreme majesty of the subjective nature of Vishnu is shown here. That's too short. So, in the very beginning, before the Chintamani prayers are started, there's a discussion of the process of creation. The spiritual seeds of Sankarshana existing in the pores of skin of Mahavishnu are born as so many golden sperms. Is that the one you were talking about? This is text number 13. Maybe we can read. Yeah, 13 and 14 maybe. Tad Roma Bila Jaleshu Bijang Sankarshanasya Cha Haiman Yandani Jatani Mahabhutavritani Tu. Translation: the spiritual seeds of Sankarshan existing in the pores of skin of Mahavishnu are born as so many golden sperms. These sperms are covered with 5 great elements. Purport: The prime divine avatara, lying in the spiritual causal ocean, is such a great affair that in the pores of his divine form spring up myriads of seeds of the universes. Those series of universes are the perverted reflections of the infinite transcendental region. As long as they remain embedded in his divine form, they embody the principle of spiritual reflection, having the form of golden eggs. Nevertheless, by the creative desire of Mahavishnu, the minute particles of the great elements, which are constituents of the mundane, efficient, and material causal principles, envelop them. That's a good sentence. We could unpack that. When those golden sperms coming out with the exhalation of Mahavishnu enter into the unlimited accommodating chamber of the limited potency Maya, they become enlarged by the non-conglomerate great elements. These purports are technical and sometimes a little difficult. But first of all, what's being described is that Mahavishnu is so great that even the whole universe, we imagine the universe as being inconceivably large, but that universe, each of those universes originates in a seed in one of the pores of the skin of his form, and therefore there's millions of them. In fact, in modern physics, quantum mechanics and things, the theoretical physicists have had to, at least many of them have had to resort to theories involving multiple universes. And there's various theories about multiple universes and infinite multiple universes, and whether some of them having the same things going on in this universe or going on in their universe, but maybe a little different, and so many different theories. Multidimensional Hilbert space. They're using mathematical conceptions of multiple dimensions to, anyway, I'm not a physicist. We have some physicists in our congregation who could explain modern physics better. But we hear modern physics is a theoretical ascending branch of knowledge that people, based on their observations of the world and their observations of different things, try to explain everything by comparing and doing experiments and discussing with others who've observed. But the Vedic way of receiving knowledge is the best way of receiving knowledge, although we can receive knowledge from our observations and we can receive knowledge from our logical analysis. But the best way of receiving knowledge, and the way really that most of us receive knowledge all the time, is by learning from people who already know and taking their word for it because they're authorities on a subject. And little children learn this way. They learn how to speak a language by being told what this means and what that means, and they learn how to do everything because they're observing and being told by the grown-ups who already know. And there's a lot to this universe that we can't see with our senses. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that a learned transcendentalist who's engaged in the practice of yoga can see how the soul is leaving one body and taking on another body according to the modes of nature he's associated with, just like the air carries aromas, and then he gets another group of senses grouped around the mind based on that association. They can see how that's taking place. But he says that others who aren't trained in yoga, even if they try, they can't see. If they don't have the realization, they can't see that. There's just, if we just consider it, there's a lot we can't see. We can't see what's going on in each other's minds. There's a Woody Allen movie where he says that he was thrown out of his metaphysics class because he was found cheating on the final exam by peering into the soul of the student next to him. But we can't, unless we're elevated yogis, we can't see a lot of what's going on in the universe, and we can't see these things. So we hear from authorities, and the Vedic authority teaches us that the Supreme Godhead, when he wants to create the material universes, he lies down in the causal ocean in a state of divine sleep or trance yogic trance-like sleep, and he dreams about the creation of the material universes, and they originate in seeds in his pores of his skin, and while they're in his skin, they're associated, reflecting his divinity. They're golden and they're shining, and then when they, by his creative desire, they come out of his skin when he exhales, and they go back into his mouth when he inhales. And when they come out, they expand into the chamber of unlimited Maya, and they're set into place, into action, by the principles of material energy and by the demigods who control these things, the Lord Shiva and Goddess Durga and so forth. And they get filled with living entities who, by God's arrangement, are born in different kinds of material bodies. And so that's going on. So the verse that I thought was interesting is, nevertheless, by the creative desire of Mahavishnu, the minute particles of the great elements, which are the constituents of the mundane, efficient, and material causal principles, envelop them. All right, so the great elements, there's subtle elements like mind, intelligence, and ego, which we can't see. And then there are great elements which are associated with our senses: fire, water, air, earth, and ether. And that's what's referred to by the great elements. The Mahabhuta, it's described in the verse, Mahabhuta, by the 5 great elements. And there are 2 kinds of cause. Here's that word again, causal. Mundane, efficient, and material causal principles envelop them. So the idea of causation in philosophy is something that people go into in great detail. And in Aristotle, he mentions 5 types of causes. There's a teleological cause, that is the ultimate goal of something. There's do you know his different cause? So the material cause is like, you could think of a potter and the potter's wheel. The material cause is the clay. You have to, if you have an object, it has a purpose. Let's say you're making a cup to drink out of, all right? So that's the teleological cause, the ultimate cause, is the purpose. The material cause is the clay that it's made out of, because it has to be made out of something, right? And then the efficient cause is the potter who decides, I want to shape this into a cup. And so there are various different kinds of causes. I know in Aristotle there are 5, and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the material cause and the efficient cause are often mentioned. And also in the Sri Brahma Samhita, they're mentioned. And it's mentioned that ultimately Krishna is all the causes, because he's the cause of the other causes, or the cause of all causes. In Aristotle, he argued for the existence of God by saying, if we look at what's going on in the world, we see everything is the effect of some cause. You can ask, why did this happen? Oh, because that happened before. Why did you get into a car accident? Oh, I didn't see the other car coming by and the other car hit. And you can just trace back. There's a cause of each effect. But the spiritual reality is not like that. There's no cause of Krishna. He is there, and what Aristotle says is there has to be an original cause. If you chase back one effect, to another cause, to another cause, to another cause, there has to be some unmoved mover, some existence that doesn't depend on, the effect of some other cause. Buddhists say, why does there have to be? But that's a different story. But there is an unmoved mover, there is a supreme cause, and that's Govinda, and that's being described in this book. That if you want to understand the original cause. And karma means work that we do, actions that we do in this world, that are the effects of some other cause, and that produce effects, material effects. But this transcendental existence of Krishna is free from the material causes and effects. It's called divyam. Janma karma chame divyam evang yo veti tatvata tyaktva dehang punar janma naiti mam iti sarjuna. One who knows the transcendental nature of the appearance and activities, karma of Krishna, does not upon leaving this body take birth again, but attains Krishna, he says, mameti. So, the material cause is the creation of the elements of the universe, fire, water, air, and earth. And the efficient cause is the force that arranges them to create all the different beings and things we see in the world, the sun and the stars and the rivers and the different kinds of humans and demigods and animals and demons. They're all combinations of these different elements, great elements and also subtle elements. And they have to be put in order by something, and that's the efficient cause, the potter. And the material cause is who creates the elements, and they're both coming from Mahavishnu. All right, any questions about that? So this description of the whole creation of the universe is here in this Brahma Samhita, and it's and it's very I would say it's concise, but it's dense. It's full of a lot of meanings. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Maybe a general question, because what you're describing is, I know to be cosmology. And so when I first was exposed to the Vedic cosmology, I was bewildered and really not interested at all. That's many years ago, and by just exposing myself to it, at some point I started to see the beauty of it. But my question to you is how do we study it? Because it's so incomprehensible. I mean, it's beautiful in itself, but to really how to really enter into the subject more than just, yes, I understand it all comes from Krishna, I have some appreciation from Krishna, so I have some appreciation for it. But the subject matter, how to really enter into it.
Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Vedaisya sarvairaham eva vedya, that to know him is ultimately the goal of all of the Vedas. But to understand how the universe is working, how it's created, what its origins are, what its ends are, they call it in theology eschatology, what happens in the final time or something like that. All those things are described in Srimad Bhagavatam, and they influence the way we think about the world and how we live in it and what our intentions are and what we want to do in our life. They influence our values. To have a cosmology influences our values. So, for example, when Charles Darwin, theorized about the origin of species by natural selection, he knew. In fact, he didn't even publish his work for a long time, or at least that's the story. And then his friends persuaded him, you should publish this because other people are starting to publish the same things and you should get credit for it because you thought of it, 20 years ago or something. He went on this trip on the Beagle, and he went to the Galapagos Islands and other places, and he was studying the different kinds of animals that are around. And then he started realizing that there's, places that are isolated, the animals develop differently, and he thought that, he was familiar with, in England, people would breed dogs or horses to get them to a certain breed and things like that by selecting qualities in the animals and mating those ones with the same qualities until they develop different breeds. And his theory was, well, in nature, there's a selection going on naturally by which other animals are able to survive and to procreate more in a particular environments. But he realized that idea would have an atheistic, or would attack the main arguments for the existence of God that were still prominent. William Paley had written about, you know, and the natural, David Hume had written, I mean, the people who believed in the natural theology, they called it, would say, you know, imagine if you walked down a beach and you discovered a watch, and you saw that it kept the time and it was working and everything, and it was a remarkable thing, and it was full of very fancy gears. You would say it's designed by someone and created by someone, you know, very intelligent, a sophisticated engineer who could put something like that together. So William Paley said, imagine if you found an eyeball that worked. The pupil would dilate and get bigger and smaller, and it could reflect, and the lens would shape would be adjusted to make a focus of light back on the retina, and then even more, that eyeball was connected by an optic nerve to a brain, and it could actually make images and allow a person to see. Then you would also understand that there's a creator of this. So this argument by design had become a more popular proof of the existence of God by the 18th and 19th century than in European culture, than like Aristotle's arguments, like there has to be a primal cause, and there were ontological arguments about what the very nature of the existence of the idea of God means he has to exist. And there are many, many very good arguments, but they had sort of lost favor as Aristotle's physics was proven to be wrong, and better physics, you know, like Galileo and guys came up with better. So eventually what we had in our history was, and that there was religious wars already going on in the 17th century. The 16th century it started this big Reformation and fighting about the nature of the church and the authority of the church and everything. And then the scientists were coming up with ideas. They were looking in the moon and telescopes and saying, hey, it's got mountains on it. You know, it looks like it's just the other things like Earth. It's not this celestial, full of angels and things. And the religious people started persecuting the scientists, and the scientists fought back. The religious people were in charge of the universities and in charge of knowledge, and they considered, theology was considered the queen of sciences, and people who ground lenses and looked at things and stuff were considered, that's not very, it's not very deep and intellectual. It's, you know, you're looking at things through a microscope or through a telescope. You know, that's where's the theological profundity of that, you know? So, but anyway, there's a history of that. But where we found ourselves today is now we have this cosmology, which is also, you know, when you get to the levels of cosmology, the kind of cosmology that Stephen Hawking and those guys do about the origins of the universe, and, you know, and whether was a big bang, or whether there's repeated. When I was a kid, I went to see a theoretical astronomer, physicist who, I forget his name now. He was a very famous Nobel Prize winner, and he was talking about how the universe is expanding because we can see the red shifting of different galaxies and stuff, and see that everything's moving. Everything that's twice as far is moving twice as fast, and so it seems like that it would have all been in one place at one time and exploded. Then they were saying his theory was that it continually it reaches a certain limit, and then it contracts again, like breathing, and it goes back to a small space, and then it explodes again and contracts again. But now that was in the 1970s, 72 or something like that. I forget this guy's name. But now that theory is not very well accepted anymore, as there's been more research into black holes and dark matter and all this other stuff. But it's all very highly speculative. I mean, it's based on observation, and it's based on rigorous analysis and logic, and we don't have to. I'm concerned. I mean, some devotees just feel like we just have to ridicule that and say it's a conspiracy, and they're lying to us, and they know that, you know, things are really different. The Earth is really flat, and, you know, whatever. And I don't think that's a very appropriate strategy for us. But it is clear that when in that realm of cosmology, it's really more like philosophy than it is like science, and it's constantly changing, and it's very, very theoretical, and very, very, nobody really believes that. I think this is interesting. I hope it's not too mundane what I'm saying. I read an autobiography of a Dutch scientist. He was there sort of in the early 20th century at the birth of quantum physics. He studied with Pauli and with Aaron Fast, and he became the secretary of Niels Bohr. His name was Casimir. And then, because of World War II and the Nazis took over Holland and stuff like that, he ended up getting out of theoretical. He was trying to get a position in university, and he ended up becoming a technology guy. He became the chairman of the national labs of Holland, Philips, the Philips company that makes all those TVs and everything. So he was applied technology and stuff. But he said that, he noticed different phases that theories went through. And like at first, when people started theorizing about atoms and molecules and things like that in the 18th century and 19th century, it was a very theoretical thing. But after so much confirmation and so much theories, worked in practice, then he felt like at a certain point the theory becomes accepted as like sort of factual and realistic. But the cosmology of the Big Bang and things like that is still it's not accepted as anybody really knows what really happened. They say different things, but they're just really speculating, and that's still very clear. But it affects, and this is where I was getting to, it affects the way we think of ourselves in the world. If we think that the universe is an empty, dead place with no soul, with no animation, with no values, with no morality, that creates what was called, the modern temper, in modernism, the angst, and what were some of the words for it? I forget, but there was a world weariness, but just a sense of that our whole place in the universe had been disturbed, and that there was no purpose for anything, and the existentialists in the 20th century confronted this, and said, well, we still have to live and have values and things like that, even though we know, because they were atheists, they said, even though that we know that there's no purpose out there. There's no, because there's no God and no supreme being. That was unfortunately a direction that intellectual history in Europe had taken. And as I see it, Srila Prabhupada's books, for one who can actually appreciate them and understand them, and if you chant Hare Krishna, you can develop the intelligence to understand them, they can lead human society back in the direction of of understanding that there really is a supreme person, and he really does have a design, and there really is a place we're going. Srila Prabhupada says that in the preface to the Srimad Bhagavatam, that there's a need in human society that we have to understand. We're developing technology, transportation, communication. The world is a smaller place, a global village. Nowadays the politicians fight like tomorrow they're having an election in France, and they're fighting about globalism or whether, nationalism and things like that. But globalism is happening anyway. I mean, how it happens might be something the politicians can deal with, but the technology means that I can get on my computer and talk to someone in India or in Japan or anywhere, and in a second, people even are gaming, they're playing internet video games and stuff like that with people on the other side of the world, and we're a smaller place. But Srila Prabhupada was mentioning that even in spite of these advances, technological advances, people seem to be not peaceful. They're quarreling, they're having wars even over slight things that shouldn't be the cause of wars. And the Srimad Bhagavatam will fill the need of society by reminding them that there is an original person underlying everything, about explaining very scientifically. I mean, other religions also believe in God, but Srimad Bhagavatam explains God in a thorough way, very clearly, and there's things in it that you won't find in any other scriptures anywhere around. We have this great mission to be able to, I like to think of Krishna consciousness not like some foreign or some ancient thing, but actually the leading edge of like the world, Lord Chaitanya's age that we're coming into, that we have to introduce the world to a more enlightened philosophy that says, like for a long time, philosophers tried to get rid of the soul. Descartes was, and the Bible doesn't really talk a lot about the details or the theory of what exactly is the soul and how is it different from matter, and it contains many different ideas. The Old Testament contains many different ideas of the soul, and the ancient Greeks had different ideas of the psyche and things like that. Descartes tried to really, explain the difference in a certain way, and then the Cartesians were trying to understand, well, how is the soul then connected to the body, and how is it synchronized with what the body does? And he thought that there was a gland in the brain that would be, that would be influenced by the body, and then would it reflect on the soul and whatever. But by the 19th century, even the 18th century, the Western philosophers just started to try to abandon the idea of the soul altogether. And now in the 21st century, they're starting to realize that there's problems with abandoning the idea of the soul too. And there's things that can't be explained just by saying that everything is just matter and materialism. And I see that the Srimad Bhagavatam explains everything in such a way. Unfortunately, it appears to people, because it's written in such a beautiful way that it's appealing. It tells pastimes, it tells stories, and the stories are attractive, and they're full of, like people are attracted to hear about people with magic powers. There's even genres of fiction where there's sword and sorcery, and there's, science fiction and different genres of, the Tolkien books, and the Game of Thrones now is a popular TV series that's based on these books by George R.R. Martin, where people, the supernatural things are happening and stuff. But when people see that, they think, well, this isn't real. It's not realism to them. In the 20th century, realism became a big important thing in fiction, to try to depict what people's actual lives, common people's actual lives, instead of, the Greek tragedies were all about kings and things like that. They weren't just about common people, but now they wanted realism. Even in the Madame Bovary and the movement of literature in Europe in modernism was to depict real people in real situations, and they didn't. They weren't so much into when they hear about yogis who can do things, have powers, or even gods that do amazing things, or even the idea of gods, for some reason some people aren't attracted or haven't gotten the good fortune to become attracted. And that's our mission and purpose. We have to tell them that, no, wait a minute, there is really something in this Srimad Bhagavatam that is very profound and very much needed, and will change our view of cosmology, and change our view of our place in the universe and our purpose in the universe, and what we have to do in our lives. Human life is meant for God realization. Srila Prabhupada came in 1974, I think. He came up here to Golden Gate Park to the Rath Yatra Festival, and he was interviewed on Channel 4 TV. And the reporter asked him to say, what is what is this Hare Krishna movement? What is it all about? And he said that the difference between humans and animals is that humans can understand what is God, and animals can't. And so the human life is meant for understanding God. And if you're a human being but you don't understand what is God, then you're really just an animal, So this is it's not just some religion. People get the idea, this is some religion. There's different varieties of religion, just like there's different ice cream flavors, and you can like one and not another and stuff like that. But we want to teach Krishna consciousness is essential. It's not just a faith. You can take one and leave it and take another, or in your next life you're another. You may be a Hindu now, and then you may be a Christian or a Muslim. But this is the Sanatana Dharma. It's the eternal, occupational essence or quality of the soul is to be a servant of Krishna. And that's explained very elaborately in Srimad Bhagavatam in very much ways. I don't know if I'm answering your question about cosmology so much, because, you're like, how do you become interested in studying about, the distance between the planets described, the Bhumandala and the different dweepas and things like that? Is that?
No, but as you're saying, that the main point, which hopefully will stay with me, is that cosmology really determines our worldview and how we act. That's very important. Mm-hmm. And what you're also sharing is some of your taste and enthusiasm for it, and so that's contagious. Thank you.
All right. Yeah, I'm thinking, the atheistic and materialistic mentality that's arisen out of the history of the last 400 or 500 years causes people to glide toward hell. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for your thoughtful and knowledgeable explanations. This whole Brahma Samhita is very mystical, and these purports are very vast. So I really appreciate that you're breaking it up and giving little bites we can chew on. And it's interesting how you were mentioning about what the scientists have come to accept or speculate, which is pretty close to Vedic cosmology. Like also this point that everything starts from an infinitely small point and then it expands from there. You were mentioning the pores of Mahavishnu.
Yeah, the singularity. Maybe that's it, in the pores.
So basically they get everything right. Just who's that blue guy, Uh-huh. They just have a problem with that. Everything else is kind of pretty much close to. My question is, you were mentioning about the flat earth, and I know that they're trying to get into exhibits now for the planetarium, and people are starting to bend their mind around how to present this to an audience so that it will be real, it will be authentic, and also it will not make us look like a bunch of fools, because that can happen in many ways. So I just wanted to ask you, what's your view on that, how that should be done or could be done? Because some things are just mind-blowing to the common people, and some things are very much discussed or refuted or challenged, even amongst devotee circles who have different views and opinions. Yeah. For me as a preacher, I'm just concerned that we don't create more homework that later on will weigh heavily on our future outreach, because people will say, yeah, you're those lunatics who did that thing. So
well, you're a book distributor. When you're out on book distribution and you approach someone with a book, you want them to take the book. So you don't want to tell them something that's going to completely turn them off. So if they say, oh yeah, I'm really interested in this because I've been reading Joseph Campbell or something like that, you say, oh yeah, Joseph Campbell, this is a lot like Joseph Campbell. It talks about the collective unconscious and the Jungian, whatever, the archetypes, and you'll find that the gods, you don't say, Joseph Campbell is a demon, he's only we have the truth and nobody else does, or nobody will take your book, I think that, I kind of have strong views about it. I don't want to disrespect any devotees, because I know they're inspired also by Super Soul and by their own devotion. They are also chanting japa and doing devotional service. But I really, on the internet, I see a lot of things where the idea is, when people say, well, we've got to present the flat earth, that this earth that we're on now is the flat earth, and then you say, well, how come the navigators who ride around in airplanes and boats, ships, they use charts that are based on this spherical Earth and the distances of the spherical Earth. And they say, well, it's part of a conspiracy. NASA has created a conspiracy to make you think that. And it all sounds, and Prabhupada doesn't say that. Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, and to take it even one step further, the arguments that I've heard was like, it's like Pac-Man, You go out one side and you come out on the other side. Pac-Man, that game, the little thing?
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, the Pac-Man thing, it just doesn't fly. It just doesn't fly. I mean, it's clear that our intellect is not vast enough to comprehend what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
But why not try to present it in a way that's actually plausible or somewhat acceptable to a normal person? Otherwise, we're really like the guy who is, in Berkeley at Cal. There's like all these different groups, you have the pro-Israel group, the pro-Palestine group, and then a few other who just wave a flag and scream.
Mm-hmm.
And people they don't even hear it anymore. They just know these guys are nuts. They're just out of their freaking minds.
There's a word, Dharma Dvaja, flag wave, religious flag wavers.
Yeah.
And the idea is that people think, well, I belong to this group, and this is our our version of things and our belief system and our rituals and everything, and everybody else is wrong. I mean, book distributors, they always meet, at least here in the United States. I used to distribute in Arkansas and Alabama and Mississippi, and you always meet born-again Christians, who would say, well, I don't want to read that book because I'm a Christian. And I say, I appreciate Christianity and I like that. And I read the Bible too. And I feel like my reading this book gave me insights about reading the Bible. And they said, you're lost. You're from a false prophet, Jesus is the only way, and I don't want to read any other book. Like, it's a sin to consider the ideas of someone else. And Mahatmas, devotees, are described as being great souls, that they can actually sympathize and understand what's going on with others in a broader way. And I think we shouldn't be seen as like some kind of blinkered, like you're saying, some kind of narrow sect that says, we only associate with our people and what we believe, and if somebody believes something different, they must be evil and lying and cheating. Yeah, I mean, Prabhupada had some harsh words for science and scientists, rascals and speculators, and that they were leading. Prabhupada wrote a letter to my wife that says the politicians and scientists are leading everyone to hell. And so study my books very carefully. And that's true, but there can be like false consciousness or a way that because of people's conclusions and mindset, they look at the world in a certain way and they come up seeing the wrong things and stuff like that. And I think that that's going on. But the idea that, that it's all really conspiracy, and they know that there's what I hear these devotees saying, and I think they're not getting it from Srimad Bhagavatam. What they're getting is that Srimad Bhagavatam says there's this plain, this Jambudvip plain, which doesn't appear to describe Africa and South America and things like that. It's describing some level of reality that we don't have access to with our present senses. And then what they do is then they go say, well, there's other people that believe in the flat earth. There's even a flat earth society, right? So they go and they watch the videos and they post the videos from the flat earth society, a lot of which are just hoaxes. And if they, and they're posing as science, but they're just really bad science. And they're saying that Antarctica isn't really a continent, but really rather it's a big wall of ice that surrounds the outer sphere of the disk. And none of that's described in Srimad Bhagavatam. The North Pole is actually the center of the universe. No, Bhagavatam says the Mandara mountain or Mount Meru or whatever is this. I haven't been a serious student of the Cosmology explained in fifth canto myself. I haven't tried to figure out how long really is a yojana and where really is the mountain that has a big mango that grows on it that creates rivers. There's like these 4 mountains and they have different kinds of fruit. One has got a jambu, and one has got a mango, and one has, I haven't really studied that and tried to figure that. And it hasn't, to me, it hasn't seemed that important to my development of Krishna consciousness and my understanding of Srimad Bhagavatam. But Srila Prabhupada did give us the task of presenting the view of the universe described in the Puranas in a planetarium, and that's an important task. And it was originally assigned, I believe, to devotees who were also well trained in science and had PhDs, like Sariputta, and that worked on it. I know there's a lot of smart devotees working on it, and I have faith that they're going to come up with something that's right. They're building a really nice temple. The contents of the temple are going to be important, and there, as I understand it, there's also going to be a planetarium, like a theater kind of thing, like an IMAX, where things can be projected around the walls and the ceilings, and then different thoughtful, realized devotees can make different presentations. When I was a kid, a planetarium made a big impression on me, and it indoctrinated me in the materialistic view of the world. We would go on school trips and everything. We'd sit there, and they would show us the sky and the different, and the different constellations and different planets, and then they would have some philosophical content. I remember I went to one, and the theme was, "You are a child of the universe, no less than there's a poem, no less than the moons and the stars. You have a right to be here." It might be from Ecclesiastes or something. It might be from the Bible. And even though you're aware of it, you may not know it, or something like that. I forget. I'm just trying to remember something from 45 years ago or 50 years ago, probably. But it was that, they had this. And if you, like when you go to Mayapur, it depends on if you're driving and you go a certain way, there's this big Bengali, like science, Science City, right. So it's like a museum to train people to accept this scientific, approach to the world, the worldview, or the how should I say, empirical science, which is that, the origin was that there are all these authorities, right? Religious authorities and so forth, and they explained what life is about and how the world works and what you're supposed to do and everything. And at some point, those authorities were all quarreling, and as we studied the world around us, we saw that they said things that were demonstrably wrong and everything. And now they said that the modern epistemology is, well, we don't accept anything on the basis of authority. The Vedanta epistemology says, and we were talking about this earlier, you can acquire knowledge in different ways, and there's all different. In fact, in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita book that we've been distributing, it's Baladev Vidyabhushana's commentary goes into more detail. Like we always hear, there's three ways: pratyaksha, direct sense perception, and then anuman is analysis and logic, and then shabda is hearing from a perfect authority, the truth, and which is the highest form. And in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, some other, different schools have added different kinds of ways of knowing things by analogy and by, there's different, you could analyze the different ways, the different kinds of analysis and things that go on. But basically there's these three categories, that we see something in front of us, but our senses can be imperfect. We deduce something, but we may be in illusion or make some mistakes in our deducing, and then we can hear from someone who really knows something, and there are things in the universe that are difficult to know, and yet they're explained by people or gods or sages that have more access to a greater understanding of reality. I mean, we could think about, for example, Hare Krishna. Different animals have different kinds of senses, right? A bat can fly around at night and catch insects by sonar, right? They emit a sound, and by the echolocation of hearing, how the sound comes back to them, they can find out where a flying insect is and go eat it, all right? We can't do that. We don't have that kind of senses. So there are things in the world that are outside of our own sense experience, but nevertheless are true. cats can see differently at night than we can, and so forth. Depending on the kind of body you have, there's different things you can perceive. That's explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. There's these descriptions of demons and gods and sages, and that they have different access to different realities and different powers that come from that. And that should be a very reasonable point. And maybe some devotees, some very learned devotees, can come up with good presentations in the planetarium area of the Temple of the Vedic Planetarium about the flatness of Jambudweep, and or different descriptions of the universe. But I think the mistake we should not make is to become there's a word they call obscurantists, and there's a tradition that because if anything is different from what you heard in your religion, it's got to be wrong. And then when people show you things that you see directly and everything like that, you say, I'm not going to talk about it, it's just a trick, it's just you're evil and you're pretending to be something that you're not, and you're not. I don't think, I had some association with Bhakti Swarup Damodar Maharaj, who Srila Prabhupada appointed to be the director of the Bhaktivedanta Institute. And a lot of devotees in the 80s felt that Maharaj's style was too accommodating. His style of preaching to scientists. They wanted him to go out and smash the scientists. And he told me that Prabhupada gave him specific instructions. They had a conference, I think, in Vrindavan, and he began to develop other conferences. And Srila Prabhupada told him, make sure they come back, make friends with them, give them prasadam, don't come and say, we've invited you to this conference, you're an idiot and you're cheating the people by promoting things aren't true, and I know you're really, they're not, that's not what they're doing. I mean, they're looking at the world and they're part of a profession. Yeah, some cheating goes on, data gets fudged, someone has to make, I'm a lawyer, I'm seeing the cheating all the time in what's going on in litigation and everything. You're doing your dissertation and you have this big theory, and then your experiment just doesn't work. Maybe somebody under that circumstance, they're human and and they have some dishonesty and they don't want to just ruin their whole career, so they adjust things a little bit. Or Druta Karma and his book Forbidden Archaeology with Sadaputta and his work shows how there's a lot of things where if something just doesn't fit the theory and the theory has become consolidated and congealed, nobody wants to be thought that they're an idiot, that they believe in something that's disagreeing with the theory, so they find ways of discounting things that are anomalies that can't be explained in the current theory. I mean, to a certain extent, if it just is an anomaly, like when I did labs in college, and you have to do experiments and chart what the results are, and then see how it approximates the formula. If it's some linear formula, you're supposed to get a graph with a straight line. But of course, you never get a straight line. You get things that are sort of around the straight line. But then you may get one measurement that's way out somewhere. And you why did I measure something that was so far away from where it's supposed to be? And you think, I must have scratched my nose when I read that one or something like that, and you just throw it out. But when you get too many of them out there, this is Druta Karma is saying that, we keep finding in strata, geological strata that are supposed to be way too old, we keep finding human artifacts that, and then they say, well, maybe it was somebody dug it there, but then they do carbon dating of it, and it still proves that it's 2 million years old or something like that. And then they just say, oh, forget it. We're not going to talk about this. It's some kind of hoax or something like that. And, at a certain point when you get too many of those things, and the archaeologists are appreciating that some archaeologists, their immediate reaction is, oh, you're attacking us and you're one of these, conspiracy theorists and stuff like that. And we don't, when he had, because his book was popular, and they made a TV series about it with Charlton Heston, narrating it and stuff, and they aired it on public television, And the scientific community freaked out, and they said, we want equal time, we want to be able to refute it, and so forth. And they said, sorry, maybe it was commercial television, and they said, we don't have, we have some obligation in politics to give equal time to opponents and things like that, but we don't have any obligation to do that here. But in the community of archaeologists, and he's a member of the community, and he's not an unreasonable man or anything like that. He's a very, very thoughtful and respectable guy. He's dealing with, and a lot of other people are interested in dealing with, what are these unexplained things that we're finding? They look like they were created by human beings. We found some pyramids undersea off of Japan, and it looks too much like it was made by humans, and yet it's millions or many millions of years old, and what is it? And he's just saying, well, let's ask those questions. He's up front. I'm Hare Krishna. The reason I got interested in archaeology is because the scriptures that I believe in talk about humans existing in human form, from the beginning of creation and in different ways, So I said, why don't I look at the archaeological literature about it? And I happen to speak Russian and Italian and French, and which he does. And I'm fluent in reading those. So I surveyed the literature, and I found something very interesting. I found that before the theory had, consolidated, there were all kinds of archaeological finds that wouldn't fit in the modern theory because they were too old, and he found what he expected to find, that there were evidence of human beings and human civilization existing like long before. And then as the theory became more and more accepted and confined, those things, they would disappear from museums. There was a kind of conspiracy, okay? What I'm saying is there is a kind of conspiracy that is just part of human nature, that there's groupthink, and when you're a member of a profession and you have a certain, when people are just too far out, they're just thrown out and ignored. But in general, scientists are just professionals, and devotees can be scientists. We have a lot of devotees in our congregation here that are scientists, and all over the world. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Not to disagree with you, but I meet very few scientists. I mean, technologist is a person who is skilled in a certain technique and a certain aspect of science, but to me, scientists are people like, Galilei or Newton or Einstein. I mean, people who see the bigger picture and don't want to exclude God. But for the most part, people who are trained in the modern empiric way, God is really not part of the lab, He's really not part of the equation. So how can we consolidate, or how can we accommodate both of these views and not be labeled as like nowadays, even being a creationist, it's like a bad word, it's like it's like a 4-letter word. It's very derogatory. So what's your suggestion of how to present it in an intelligent way that people can actually appreciate it and make some benefit?
Well, one thing is we can talk about, really big scientists that had questions about this. Like Erwin Schrödinger wrote a book called What is Life, What is Matter? And, what do we mean? At the root of real science is philosophy. Nowadays they say philosophy is a handmaiden to science. But the truth is that when it originated, science was just a branch of philosophy that dealt with what can we deduce about the world around us from what we can see and describe. And we're starting to notice that there are, mathematical relationships between different concepts and things like that. I think that one way we can do it is by talking about Luria, like the big original father of neurology. He said that when I do these experiments and put electrodes in the brains of cats and things like that. And when I'm really working with it, I can't escape the feeling that there's really a soul. So that's one technique, is to talk about how like you said, a real scientist. There's a lot of people that are they study science and they follow the crowd of atheism because that's this kind of modern, trend. Just like kids in high school, they like different kinds of music, and the kids that like rap go and hang out with each other, and the kids that like classical and are in the band, they hang out with each other. It's just a sociological phenomenon. It doesn't have anything to do with real philosophy. It has to do, and partisan politics. People feel part of a team, and somebody feels another part of a team. But I think that the great scientists are open-minded to consider, genuine philosophical arguments if we can make them right and explain. And we shouldn't. I mean, different devotees. I've been reading this book that Vaishesika recommended me to read about church management. It's like a management guru that's talking about how to organize your church and everything. But he notes that, if you have a church where, the people that go out and, when people come and visit your church, they're only met by retirees over 60 years old, you're not going to fill up your church with teenagers or 20-year-olds or people just starting families and stuff like that, because people associate with, of course Prabhupada was much older than us, but then we went out and got all our friends, and we had this whole movement that was based on what was happening in the counterculture, youth counterculture of the 1960s and 70s. People are going to, scientists are going to talk to scientists in a certain way. Scientist devotees will talk to scientist devotees in a certain way. I mean, we have devotees in our congregation here who have PhDs in physics and have gotten genius awards, and our Rakshit Jariwala, Rasika Shekhar, was a medical researcher with a PhD, and I mean, there are a lot of devotees that have that caliber of education, and they can talk to their colleagues, and they're not going to say, "Oh, the world is flat. It's just a conspiracy that NASA is manipulating photographs or something, and to show it differently." But I think that we're also going to have devotees that are into conspiracy theories, and they might attract other conspiracy theory type people. Just like we have straight edge kids who like punk rock, and they're going to attract other kids who like punk rock to like Krishna. So that might be going on. That there's different devotees with different sort of variety. That's another thing that this guy. I'm reading this book. It's called A Purpose-Driven Church. It's by a Baptist pastor named Rick Warren, and I'm not reading it for the theology because he's a Baptist pastor and I'm a Hare Krishna devotee. But he has makes a lot of sense about how to manage a church and its evangelical mission, and how to manage it and keep on its mission, and keep its purpose in the center, rather than becoming driven by finances or by different programs that you have, or different kinds of things that may drive a church. But he did say one thing that and I just lost my train of thought. I was going to tell you about something that he said, but I was talking about how he said that you can design your services in a certain way to attract different kinds of people, or you can have a special service to attract people who are just coming for the first time, and other services for people who are really in your core committed people, or at least you can figure out how to design it that way. But I lost my train of thought in response to your question about how do we preach to scientists. There was a specific new idea that I got from Rick Warren that I was going to say was kind of a Christian idea, but it transferred to Vaishnava theology. And I lost the train of thought. Maybe I'll come up with it later. I apologize. But yeah, I think that we need to. Srila Prabhupada established Bhaktivedanta Institute because he realized that the authorities in modern society that people look up to as, people who know what reality is like and so forth, are scientists. In court, we have a certain kind of witness that saw something or heard something or, whatever. They're called percipient witnesses, and they can come and talk about what they saw or heard or smelled or whatever they perceived with their senses. But then there's another kind of witness called an expert witness that can explain some of the evidence to lay people that don't have the specialized training. So we have economists and accountants and we have physicists, accident reconstruction people or people that talk about how the DNA evidence works to identify the blood that was found at the murder scene and things like that. And they're scientists. A lot of them are scientists that have specialized training in a particular area and can explain things. So Srila Prabhupada recognized that, in modern society, the scientists are sort of occupying the role of brahmanas in society in one way, that they're the head of society, that they're the authorities on reality. But because they're not brahmanas and they're not in the mode of goodness, they don't have the good qualities and good values of brahmanas, they're misleading everybody. But we have to, if we want to capture the whole civilization and make them all part of the Sankirtan movement, we have to reach those people. We have to reach the authorities and have them start to understand that, well, no, we don't have to be atheists. And not all of them are. I mean, really, there are a lot of Jews and Christians and Muslims and Hindus that go into, the profession of astronomy or physics or chemistry and make great contributions. And in their life, they're still, practicing their religious faith and philosophies and understanding. The great Indian mathematician Ramanujan was actually he was a sort of a natural talent. He wasn't trained in formal mathematical university and everything, but he just was full of all these. In fact, they wrote a book called The Man Who Knew Infinity, and they've recently made a motion picture of it. But he was full of all these insights and formulas about different things. And somehow or another, a mathematician at one of the big British, Cambridge, I think it was, invited him to come there and study with them. And it was around right before World War I started. It was a racist society, and there was all these different things. But he was getting his formulas from his goddess. He's worshiping Lord Nrsingadev and goddess Saraswati, and Namagiri. And he was a Tamil guy, and he said that she was coming and revealing to me these explanations of number theory and formulas that would work and show different things. So there are people that are contributing to science that are, and in the old days, Pascal was a serious Christian religious. He was a part of the Catholic Church that had like trance states and things like that. And he was very, very intense religious guy. A lot of the older scientists, when religion was more prominent in society, were super religious. Isaac Newton was a super religious guy. He was a little weird. Maybe he did a little too many experiments with mercury and things and affected him. But he was a very, very important person in British society. Not only was he, this person who had practically created, the modern, age of reason or whatever, but he became the Chancellor of England and was in charge of the treasury and the budget of the country and everything. But he had his secret works on, numerological studies of the prophecies of Daniel, and he had a very religious, unusual religious mystical ideas about things that he dealt with. And then those days. So I guess what I'm saying, or what I'm sort of expressing by example, is that it's not bad for devotees to study the history and philosophy of science and to be able to talk about it with other students of history and philosophy of science, and still be devotees, will have a positive influence on people among one kind of things. But in Newton's day, religion was so important that he had a rivalry with Leibniz. Both of them claimed to have, discovered calculus independently of one another, and Newton's people thought that Leibniz was just plagiarizing him, and it didn't. So Leibniz was, the scientists in those days weren't really part of the establishment. They had to be patronized by somebody. Galileo was patronized by the Medicis, and Leibniz was being patronized by some princess in Scandinavia somewhere. And let me just finish the story first. He criticized Newton had described the solar system in a certain way, and then the question arose that, actually I don't even remember the details of the Leibniz-Clark controversy. That was a historical thing, but he described the solar system in a certain way, and Leibniz had described it that it was God's sensorium. And then Newton criticized that. There was like this theological controversy about their competing views of philosophy and science. And they had gotten into a controversy because they were already bristling at each other. And Newton didn't deign to write as Isaac Newton, but he got his secretary or one of his followers, a gentleman named Clark. But he was really actually writing his own essays, and they were publishing them under the name of Clark. But there was a series, I had a book, there was a series of point-counterpoint debates being published between Newton and Leibniz about whose view of science was really invalid because it was inherently atheistic. And they were saying, mine is more theistic because. And they had all these different arguments. But that was, of course, that's like ancient history now, and nobody really thinks about it or knows about it. But it's interesting for devotees to look at these things, not to be distracted from hearing about Krishna and hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. But, devotees get educations. I mean, they have to learn to speak languages and to read and write and to, a lot of devotees need to be in a profession. And, if your profession is that you're, a seller of electronics equipment or something like that, why is that any better than having a profession as a professor of physics or philosophy? Yes?
Hare Krishna, thank you. We were just in Berkeley yesterday on the campus, and it's so interesting to see how certain individuals are just naturally attracted to Bhagavad Gita and to the devotees and to the books, and they have some goodness in themselves. And other people, no matter from which background of life, they take one look at you and they run in the opposite direction, And it's quite interesting to see how, without even putting any extraneous effort into it, you just kind of, when the lemon juice enters the boiling milk, it kind of polarizes. It just, and so to keep that balanced approach is sometimes difficult because Dvabhuta sargalokesmi sura asura evacha Krishna bhakta smitodaiva asura stadviparya. I just see oftentimes, like especially approach people from Indian background, and some are like, wow, oh yeah, this is it, I've been looking for this. And others are like, they feel like embarrassed,
Yeah.
Or they're like, let's chalo, just let's go. We're not.
This is what's been holding us back.
Exactly.
That's, the politicians have taught them that, yeah.
There's hardly any middle ground. So somehow this idea of let us be moderate and just walk the middle path and we'll find the reasonable people has not been that productive because somehow the polarized groups are always many and the moderate people are always very few, and they tend to get shot at from both other camps because you're between the front lines. So
I don't think I was saying we should just walk the moderate path and, I think we should chant Hare Krishna in public and we should distribute Prabhupada's books and talk to them about the books and things like that. I just mean we don't have to. Bhakti Charuswami, All right, so he was born and raised Bengali, and he had contact with, had seen Hare Krishna devotees in India before he went to Germany to study for his engineering degree. But he associated them in his mind with, the sahajyas and things like that that are, that make up most of Lord Chaitanya's devotees. Poor people, uneducated people, like we would think of hillbillies and, that they're Pentecostals and they handle snakes and things like that because they're backward people somehow. So he wasn't that interested. And then in Germany, he met devotees that were educated, Western educated devotees that were able to talk to him, and then he, became attracted. And then he met Prabhupada, and Prabhupada gave him, I think, sannyas in a very short amount of time, and and indicated he would be a big leader in the movement. But I don't think I'm not arguing that we just water everything down and try to sound reasonable. What I'm saying is that...
I was not trying to insinuate that. I'm just, playing the devil's advocate and taking the argument a couple of steps further.
But it's really true, as you say, that there are demons and devotees. And Lord Krishna, like you mentioned, in the 16th chapter, he says that some people are just, sort of automatically attracted to following the authority of the personality of Godhead, and some people are just automatically opposed to the authority of the personality of Godhead, and they're arrogant and prideful and conceited and harsh and angry, and they have all these bad qualities. And when they see devotees, when they actually see a devotee, they can tell it's a devotee, and depending on whether they're demons or godly people, they have one reaction: oh, I'm really attracted to this. This is very nice. Or, get away from me. I hate you guys. I'm going to torture you and attack you and stuff like that, because there really are demons and devotees. But what I'm saying is that we shouldn't think that because someone has an education and has a scientific education or anything else, that makes them a demon. It doesn't. Demoniac tendencies of atheism are prominent in modern educated circles, and they tend to look down on religion as being something kind of backward, and we have to change that. So instead of just reinforcing that by saying, no, if you want to become a devotee, you have to believe that the astronauts didn't go to the moon, and that maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I'm not taking a position, but if we try to make that a criteria that if you want to join our movement and be one of us, you have to think that all of the educated people in the world are to be feared and shunned, and we don't want to talk to them because they're really lying about everything and stuff. If we feel like that, we're not going to get anywhere. And what we have to do is find. Vaishesika said that going out on a book distribution is like when I started doing book distribution in the 70s. We would just try to get some money from everybody. And the idea was to develop our skill at being able to distribute a book or even a carnation or whatever we were doing to anyone and make them give something regardless of who they were. And Vaishesika said, no. We're trying to actually find the people who, to find the ones that are actually receptive to take a book. We can't, if they're not receptive, if they're saying, get away from me, I don't want one, move on to someone else. Pick the low-hanging fruit is what he was saying. Take the low-hanging fruit, and not be very proud of your power to make a person who's not interested take a book, but instead, see the importance of the duty that if we're not out there giving the books out to people who, we're going to miss the people who really want them and are looking for them and need them and stuff. But we can find those people among the most educated, among the most sophisticated, among the most wealthy, among the most famous people in society. They're the real movers and shakers of society. Not to say that we care more about them than anybody else, but we don't have to, reject them. I think sometimes there may be a psychology at work among some devotees of feeling inferior. I remember I was in Miami. I don't even remember the exact circumstance, but I wanted to start a Krishna club on a campus or something like that. I wanted to meet somebody, someone's family, and the devotee told me he didn't know me, and he said, "Oh no, that person is very sophisticated. Their friends are lawyers and stuff." And I said, "Oh, that's perfect. I'm a lawyer." But his idea was that a person who was a lawyer couldn't really be a devotee because a devotee had to be a hippie, or they had some conception of that we don't belong with sophisticated or powerful people. And I'm not saying we should only look for them or that we should value them more or anything. Everyone's a soul, and Krishna wants to bring everyone to Krishna consciousness. But we shouldn't feel like we don't have something that will be attractive to intellectual or business or political leaders. It can be. Yeah, it's harder because people may be puffed up and they may be already, young people. Prabhupada was at some campus Prabhupada was preaching, I guess. Maybe he was at a campus and he had a reporter and she was asking him, "How come all your followers are young?" And he said, "How come all the students in the university are young?" And she said, "Well, that's the age for learning." And Prabhupada said, "Yes, so this is also the age for realizing God, But where was I going? Anyway, it may be that people, when they're too puffed up or too, already set in their ways or already connected to a whole way of things, it may be harder to, certainly to get them to move into a temple and shave their head and wake up at 4 a.m. and do all that stuff. But they still have, we still have a mission to reach everybody. And when the leaders of the world become devotees, I think, I have to admit, I'm embarrassed to admit that in the 70s when I joined the movement, when Prabhupada said we could take over the world in 18 days, because the Battle of Kurukshetra was 18 days or something like that. And I used to think that, we're in on something right now that's so important and everything. And then later, as we get older and more people join, we'll become the leaders of the world. But I think later I've come to think that what Prabhupada meant was that, the devotees who can teach Krishna consciousness the best will become leaders of the world, but it doesn't mean that we're going to become the politicians and the army generals and the business industrialist magnates and stuff. It means that those people will also become devotees, and they will learn to, the pure devotees can guide the politicians and the industrialists and the college professors and everything, can guide them in how they can conduct themselves in their own professions as devotees. I'm sorry,
Nita Goranga, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. What's your name, Prabhu?
Keshav.
Keshav, nice to meet you.
I found really interesting that in that Krishna's pastime, when he opened his mouth to Mother Yashoda, she saw like herself within herself, and that's really crazy because it's like simultaneous.
Simultaneous.
Yeah, simultaneous, and that's about it.
Yeah, and then she, after being astonished in wonder at seeing that Krishna has the whole universe in his mouth, including her, it disturbed her. Her affection for Krishna as his mother was so strong that disturbed her rasa, that it disturbed her natural, affectionate, loving mood and the mellows of devotion that she was. And she told Krishna, "Okay, don't eat dirt again. Don't do it again." She didn't want to see it. You would think that someone who was trying to appreciate God through cultivation of jnana and something would be excited to see, "Oh, I see how the universe is in your mouth." But someone who's beyond that, who's developed their bhakti and has an affectionate relationship with Krishna very strongly, she's no longer interested in seeing what the universe is really like or whatever. She's interested in pleasing Krishna by the way she takes care of him. There's Shivaram Swami wrote this series of books, Krishna in Vrindavan series, and the one I liked the most was Krishna Sangati, Meetings with Lord Krishna. But there's a new one about Mother Yashoda now, Do you know what it's called? But it's beautiful the way he's describing how Krishna wakes up in the morning and how he's seeing his mother churning milk and the bangles, jingling, and what he's thinking and how their relationship is. And it's, but it's really, that rasa is very sweet and yeah.
Like that part, it like makes modern science and quantum physics look like really small.
Yeah,
we can't really like go around it.
That's a good insight. That's a good insight. I feel a little guilty because I haven't read from Srimad Bhagavatam yet, and we're almost over. So I was going to sing a song a little bit and read a little from. And Tuesday night is the Nrsimha Chaturdashi, the appearance day of Lord Nrsimhadev. Oh, it's 9:45, huh? All right, let me just quickly read a purport. We won't discuss it. I'll read a verse and purport. This is from Canto 7, Chapter 5, Text 32. Naishang matis tavad urukramangrim sprishat yanartha pagamo yadartaha mahiyasang padarajobhishekam yiskinchananang na vrinita yavat. Translation, unless they smear upon their bodies the dust of the lotus feet of a Vaishnava, completely freed from material contamination, persons very much inclined toward materialistic life cannot be attached to the lotus feet of the Lord, who is glorified for his uncommon activities. Only by becoming Krishna conscious and taking shelter at the lotus feet of the Lord in this way can one be free from material contamination. Prahlad Maharaj had spoken like a Vaishnava, and Hiranyakashipu had said, attacked his teachers. Why are you teaching him this, treasonous philosophy? We hate Vishnu. We're the anti-Vishnu party. And they said, we didn't do it. Someone must have come in disguise and done it. And his father asked him, where did you get this? And Prahlad Maharaj is talking and explaining Vaishnava philosophy. Purport, becoming Krishna conscious brings about anartha apagama, the disappearance of all anarthas, the miserable conditions we have unnecessarily accepted. The material body is the basic principle of these unwanted material conditions. The entire Vedic civilization is meant to relieve one from these unwanted miseries, but persons bound by the laws of nature do not know the destination of life. As described in the previous verse, Isha tantriam urudamni badhaha. They are conditioned by the three strong modes of material nature. The education that keeps the conditioned soul bound life after life is called materialistic education. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has explained that materialistic education expands the influence of Maya. Such an education induces the conditioned soul to be increasingly attracted to materialistic life and stray further and further away from liberation from unwanted miseries. Okay, I know the time is up, but I'm just going to read the end of this purport, please. It seems like it's talking about what we've been talking about. One may ask why highly educated persons do not take to Krishna consciousness. The reason is explained in this verse. Unless one takes shelter of a bona fide, fully Krishna-conscious spiritual master, there is no chance of understanding Krishna. The educators, scholars, and big political leaders worshipped by millions of people cannot understand the goal of life and take to Krishna consciousness, for they have not accepted a bona fide spiritual master and the Vedas. Therefore, in the Mukunda Upanishad, in the Mundaka Upanishad, it is said, Nayam Atma Pravachanena Labhyo Namedhaya Na Bahuna Shrutena. One cannot become self-realized simply by having an academic education, by presenting lectures in an erudite way, Pravachanena Labhyaha, or by being an intelligent scientist who discovers many wonderful things. One cannot understand Krishna unless one is graced by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One who has surrendered to a pure devotee of Krishna and taken the dust of his lotus feet can understand Krishna. First, one must understand how to get out of the clutches of Maya. The only means is to become Krishna conscious, and to become Krishna conscious very easily, one must take shelter of a realized soul, a Mahat or Mahatma, whose only interest is to engage in the service of the Supreme Lord. As the Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Mahatmanas tu mang partha daivim prakritim ashritaha bhajantyananya manaso gyatva bhutadim avyayam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. Therefore, to end the unwanted miseries of life, one must become a devotee. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarvair gunais tatra samasate suraha. One who has unflinching devotional faith in Krishna consistently manifests all the good qualities of Krishna and the demigods. Yasya deve para bhaktir yata deve tata gurau tasyaite katita hyartaha prakashante mahatmanaha. Only to these great souls who have implicit faith in both the Lord and the spiritual master are all the imports of Vedic knowledge automatically revealed. Svetashvatara Upanishad 623. Yame vaisha vrinute tena labhyas tasyaisha atma vivrinuti tanum swam. The Lord is obtained only by one whom he himself chooses. To such a person he manifests his own form. These are Vedic injunctions. One must take shelter of a self-realized spiritual master, not a materially educated scholar or politician. One must take shelter of a nishkinchana, a person engaged in devotional service and free from material contamination. That is the way to return home, back to Godhead. Interesting that the purport and verse seems to be relevant. I'm sorry, I was going to sing something and do other things, but we got carried away in this discussion. It's a discussion that's close to my heart for some reason. Hare Krishna, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. I'm sorry to take up your time, but we'll just go along till you're done.